Hello and welcome to Newsround, the programme that keeps you up to date with all the aerospace and defence happenings across Africa, Arabia and South Asia. I'm Marcella Nethersole.
And I'm Alan Peaford. This week we take a look at how India is shaping up for the battle to reach industry sustainability targets, and how West Africa is hoping to match supply with demand for MRO capability in the region. And we meet up with an old hand in the business aviation market segment for our region. And he's joining forces with former competitors to welcome a whole bunch of aircraft owners and operators.
All this plus the news headlines right after this short break. Welcome back, and here are the news headlines. Further delays to Abu Dhabi Airport's flagship midfield terminal look likely if, as reported by Reuters, the main building contract has been cancelled. The news agency said that the $3 billion contract for the terminal, originally set to open in 2017, had overrun on costs as well as time. The consortium that won the contract 9 years ago was made up by UAE-based Arab tech Turkey's TAV Insat and Athens-based CCC. Neither the contractors or Abu Dhabi airports have commented on the situation. Kenya Airways expects to save $45 million this year after changing the lease terms of its aircraft fleet, opting for an hourly rates over fixed costs, reports CH Aviation. Managing Director Alan Kilavuka said the carrier had negotiated productivity-based payment method with its lessors to avoid fixed costs and to reduce expenses related to fleet management, at a time when it had been struggling with later travel demand due to the pandemic. Consequently, it has cut capacity, which has seen a good portion of its fleet underutilised. Israel's Bird Aero Systems has delivered a complete airborne surveillance information and observation system to an undisclosed African government. The Maritime Task Force solution includes multiple Cessna Citation CJ3 aircraft converted into maritime patrol aircraft, together with Bird's aircraft mission management system, which was also installed on a number of vessels. Bird has already supplied a similar system to Angola. Abu Dhabi Aviation has leased 2 new AW139 helicopters to Angola operator Bestfly, with the first helicopter being handed over to the Luanda headquartered company by Leonardo last week. The helicopters will be used primarily on offshore services for the oil and gas industry, said Bestfly CEO Nuno Pereira, and are fitted for medevac duties. Bestfly has contracts with several major oil companies such as Total, Exxon and BP. Indian carrier Indigo has cut almost 1,250 tonnes of emissions after automating its ground support equipment last year. That equates to 5% of its total carbon emissions. Among the e-friendly solutions implemented were modified baggage freight loader for cabin loading, battery swapping using monorail crane, a 10-tonne electrical tug instead of a 20-tonne, battery-operated baggage freight loader, battery-operated baggage water cart, and portable baggage transfer belt. Oman Air is training the next generation of Omani cadets with the aim to increase the number of national pilots at the airline. With 102 Omani cadets currently enrolled in the ATPL programme, the airline said it is reshaping the pilot profession for Omani nationals in anticipation of a robust start to aviation post-pandemic travel. Ethiopian Airlines Group retains its title as Africa's top airline in passenger and freight traffic, according to the 2020 industry report released by AFRA last week. Ethiopian carried 5,000 tonnes of freight and 5.5 million passengers through its main hub, Addis Ababa Bola International Airport. And finally, if you needed reassurance that the airline world is back to business, then look no further than Dubai, where this week Emirates reopened its first-class lounge at Dubai International. The airline said it was necessary to serve the growing volume of premium customers travelling from and through the Emirates hub, as more markets around the world ease restrictions and put in place protocols that enable international travel. And you'll be pleased to know, Alan, that they'll be introducing a range of healthy and vegan foods, so new normal after all.
I'm afraid that it's still going to be the char-grilled Wagyu burger for me, Ella. But I guess we're looking at ways to change for a healthier and sustainable future. Ella talked in the news about Indigo's cut in emissions with its automated ground equipment. Well, our India correspondent Neelam Matthews reports now from New Delhi on how other airlines in India are also playing their part to make the world a greener place.
Thanks, Alan. Who would have thought with tight-fisted budgets today, Indian aviation would even bother to look at investment in the environment? The pandemic has expedited and brought sustainability into focus. International aviation has set a target to reach net zero emissions by 2050. This time around, there is another twist to the story: cost savings. It's all about sustainability making good business sense. Take aviation fuel, a tax guzzler for Indian carriers. It burns up to 45% of operating costs thanks to the high state taxes imposed on it. India has taken the initiative to become the first to commercially use the world's only certified taxing alternative, Israeli taxibots. These semi-robotic pilot-controlled vehicles are used for towing airlines, saving billions of dollars in fuel costs and FOD, stray bits of debris that can cause expensive damage to aircraft. Noise and air pollution are also cut down. Delhi airport's 2 taxibots have been used for more than 1,500 missions. The plan is to have at least 15 bots as air traffic picks up. The CEO of KSU Aviation, the sole supplier, tells us with new green airports such as the Noida International Airport coming up near Delhi, the number could exceed 50 in coming years. You know, the incredible thing is, Alan, airline towing costs airlines a horrifying $100 a minute. Airlines in India, like global carriers, are also looking to use sustainable aviation fuel, SAF, for flights. Incidentally, Etihad is among the first airlines in the region to do so. Budget SpiceJet has trialed this. Under a World Economic Initiative, Cleaner Skies for Tomorrow, India has set a goal to transport 100 million domestic passengers on at least a 10% SAF blend by 2030. I understand that Air India has tied up with Neste Oil for trial flights. The pandemic has taught airports on how important cost savings are when revenues stop flowing in. Noida Airport is using the sustainability concept in design. It was one of the reasons for the choice of the architects, the CEO told me. The airport bid was won by Zurich International Airport, which is ambitiously working towards building India's first airport with a zero-emission philosophy. Design and construction materials will use natural light to reduce energy costs for cooling, plants that require little water in landscaping, rainwater harvesting, solar power are some exciting measures. So, Alan, we come to the beginning of the end of our story, as India starts playing its part in bringing the world of aviation a cleaner, sustainable future ahead.
That was Neelam Matthews. Well, in West Africa, one way to reduce emissions as well as cost would be to stop its growing airline fleets from having to travel empty for thousands of miles for maintenance with their C&D checks. And there's been a lot of chatter in Nigeria in recent months about MRO initiatives, and now it seems Ghana has joined in. MRO editor Chuck Grieve joins us now to explain.
Oh, thanks, Al. Yeah, the Ghanaian consultancy Aerojet Aviation has been promoting an MRO project with the ambition of making Kotoko International Airport in Accra a regional hub and centre of excellence for MRO. They're in West Africa. So it's a fairly new company. They were set up in 2016, but they were set up specifically to tackle the MRO challenge. So last week, this project took a major step forward when the US Trade and Development Agency announced grant funding for the feasibility study. Now, all things being equal, they hope to launch operations at the end of 2024. Aerojet has appointed the New York-based consultants Vulcan Aviation to do the survey, draw up detailed plans and designs to attract project finance.
Well, that's interesting, Chuck. I mean, it really does look like there is a taste for West Africa when it comes to inward investment.
That's right, Al. Earlier this year, we saw a consortium led by the AJW Group of the UK named preferred bidder by the Nigerian authorities for their own MRO, Center of Excellence at Abuja. That's being developed as a public-private partnership. Last time I spoke to AJW, they were still in negotiations with the authorities over this and an aircraft leasing operations. The one sticking point is that AJW needs a 145 approved partner for the MRO project. And they told me they hope to strike a deal with an African organization.
And that sounds like a problem to me, as there's clearly a shortage of Part 145 MRO businesses across the whole continent. And with the growing number of airlines in those West African and Central African states, it's going to be tough.
Yep, West Africa is a big challenge, Al. The region has more than 30 airlines, we're told, and a scarcity, obviously, of heavy maintenance shops. One of the bright spots is aero contractors in Nigeria, but they're full from domestic operators and from neighboring countries. So, others have to send their aircraft abroad, and the cost of C-checks for 737 Classics, which is the dominant type in the region, is at least 1.8 million, which adds up to capital flight of between 2 to 3 billion a year. So, domestic or at least on-continent capability could save around 35% of their maintenance budget, and that would be the difference in many cases between sink and swim. So at least half a dozen operators have floated plans recently to set up domestic MROs. Interestingly, at MRO Middle East in Dubai last month, I was speaking to Captain Kamis Al-Kabi, who's the CEO of the UAE-based Global Jet Technic, a 145 approved organization. He told me Ghana was on his radar, partly because the UAE government is investing there, which could lower the risk factor in any venture. And we all know that risk and associated ideas with capital is one of the problems, one of the sticking points in Africa. But the UAE government investment would follow a pattern of sorts, highlighted by Qatar Airways' interest in Rwand Air, albeit not specifically MRO, and the joint venture between Sanad Aerotech and Ethiopian Airlines Engineering to set up a center of excellence in Addis. So all in all, I think Africa is a place to watch at the moment in MRO.
Yeah, and the other challenge, of course, is going to be the lack of available space at many of those premier airports.
Very possibly. What we're reading is that the domestic airlines and people setting up new operations are actually talking to the airport authorities to try and get free zones set up at the airports. It's quite a new and vital development, I think, because as well as helping the local economies, these could also help other neighboring economies. We heard Benin, Cameroon being mentioned as neighboring countries to the Nigeria and Ghana area, where the spin-off benefits from free zones, especially at airports, could help a lot. And for MRO operations, the free zone would probably help with the cost of the parts, the stockpiling of parts, and other problems associated with MRO.
Thanks, Chuck. Well, let's hope we see some concrete moves there soon. Indicators are that by 2023, there's going to be the big bang for West African aviation, and the infrastructure, the finance, and the skilled technicians are going to be needed for then. But it's not just the airlines. Business aircraft too could be in demand. There's no doubt that in some parts of the world right now, business aviation is back on track, and the leading OEMs are priming themselves for a surge in new customers. This is Michael Amalfitano, the president and CEO of Embraer's executive aviation business.
During the pandemic period, business aviation fared very well, and the industry has proven to be resilient. Business aviation, as you know, presents less touch points to its users, so in turn, we have seen more first-time buyers than ever before, while corporations are also experiencing renewed interest in private aviation.
But it's a daunting prospect for those wanting to enter the ownership or leasing of these incredible time-saving tools. I was interested to see a press release last week announcing the launch of Vulcan Aviation, a company that's aiming to support clients through every stage of the aircraft ownership journey, from acquisitions and sales to management, operations and maintenance. So, what is special from that release was that the partners are three very familiar names. Trevor Esling, who was previously the Regional VP for Africa, the Middle East and South Asia for Gulfstream. Roger White, the former head of worldwide sales and previously Regional VP for our region for Cessna. And Barry Johnson, the CEO of Executive Jet Charter. Well, I'm delighted to say we have Trevor joining us now. Trevor, I know you hate being called a veteran, but Vulcan Aviation sure has some great knowledge of the industry in our region.
Yeah, between us we have a significant amount of experience in the aviation side of things and would like to certainly see what we can do to expand our interests in the Middle East. And by leveraging all those relationships that we've all built up over the years, hoping that we can see some activity in Saudi, other areas of the GCC, and then down into Africa and Nigeria primarily, but other particular areas. South Africa, of course, would be another one. So that's what we're geared towards. Vulcan has lots of expertise and lots of strong relationships in the area, so we're hoping to leverage off those and see what we can do to help people who want to come into aviation, buying used or new aircraft and operating them, of course, or alternatively, those people already in aviation who want to expand, go to bigger airplanes, or look for different management solutions. So that's really our remit, I would say.
Okay, so we know the USA market has bounced right back, but what's happening with the rest of the world, and what are the prospects for our region?
I think that when we went into the pandemic, we had this situation where the international market went into somewhat of a hiatus. But I think it will come back, and it'll come back strongly as we see those restrictions on moving around progressively lifted, which I guess is going to push things more towards the end of the year. But then I think you'll start to see the international market pick up in the Middle East, in Africa, and in other areas, Western Europe as well, which has been pretty slow from a sales perspective. So that's my expectation.
I think you could be right, Trevor. Well, thank you for joining us, and good luck with Vulcan. Ella, back with you.
Thanks, Alan. Just a piece of people news to end with. The Airlines Association of Southern Africa has named Renwell Stander as its new Chief Executive Officer. She is the former CEO of Comair and was also the Managing Director of South Africa's Air Traffic Navigation Service, ATNS. Renell takes over the reins later this month from Chris White-Hall, who has served the association with distinction for more than 19 years. So that's it from us this week. Join us again in 2 weeks when Victoria Moores has a farewell interview with Chris White-Hall, who has some great stories to tell. Now, if you have any great stories to tell from our emerging markets, let us know. Details are on the website. So until then, stay safe and goodbye.
Goodbye.
How do we achieve ultimate defense interoperability? Inspired by Vision 2030, we are introducing the first of its kind, the World Defense Show. Integrating land, air, sea, satellite, and security.